I'm the first to admit when I make a mistake. I simply never do.
Hey guys, welcome back to Movie Reviews. Today I'm reviewing, a month later, the historical movie Napoleon, directed by Ridley Scott. It came out right around Thanksgiving, which was a little over a month and a half ago. I'm late on it, but yeah, last movie of 2023. Right here in the beginning of 2024. Oops. So this movie, it's about the life and amazing military career of Napoleon Bonaparte, who was the French general slash dictator of France, 200 years ago in the early 1800s. And at playing Napoleon himself, we have the Joker himself, whose sequel to the Joker movie will be coming out in this later this year, Joaquin Phoenix. And as his wife, Empress Josephine, we have Vanessa Kirby. And yeah, so like I said, this movie, it shows it's not an exact like documentary about Napoleon. I mean, there are some things that they do keep out for some reasons, but yeah. So basically, this kind of shows the French Revolution. Um, it starts in 1793. Now, a little background information for those of you that don't know. The French Revolution, it basically is France's version of what happened here in the United States back in 1776. The U.S., we declared independence from Great Britain. Our 13 colonies right here on the East Coast, we declared independence, we fought, and in 1883, we finally succeeded, and the British, they left, and we gained our independence, and the United States was founded. So France, they decided, seeing our success, they tried to, the poor at the time, which was a majority of the population in France, they attempted to rebel against their leaders, the aristocrats and the monarchy at the time. They succeeded in overthrowing them, but as a result, France was just for so long was thrown into just complete chaos of just total like chaotic anarchy, and from all this chaos rose Napoleon. So this movie takes place a little bit while after the French Revolution begins in 1793 with the beheading via guillotine of Marie Antoinette, who was the queen of, I believe it was King Louis the 15th or the 16th, who was the monarchy of France at the time before the revolution. And Napoleon, he watches from the crowd of her being beheaded by the guillotine. And now France, at this point, they have something of a new government, but while this is happening, Britain is invading them, their port at Toulon, and Napoleon, along with his brother, they go to repel the British. They successfully do it, and then over time, later in 1795, the government that they have at that point in France, which is led by, I can't think of his first name, Robespierre, he is removed, executed, and overthrown. So then a new government takes place in France, a new, like, something of a democracy, I believe, like a new constitutional democracy. And Napoleon, he is sent to Egypt to try to repel the Ottomans from the pyramids. But while this is going on, or before this actually goes on, Napoleon, he meets his soon-to-be wife, Josephine. She is a rich widow aristocrat. They meet and they have quite an interesting love life, but despite this, they're unable to have children. So, um, while Napoleon, he's off at war in 1795, or is it 1798? One of those two. He's off in Egypt fighting back the Ottomans and admiring the amazing architecture of the ancient Greeks. That's also one thing in real life, he really did admire. Josephine, she is cheating on him by sleeping with another guy. And after defeating the Ottomans and looking at the pyramids, Napoleon hears this and he immediately rushes back to France, and he truly sees this and he calls out Josephine. She decides to truly remain loyal to him, and the French government at the time, they're upset with him for basically abandoning his troops just to return home. And in response, Napoleon, he basically just calls them out for being such a poor, weak government. And that as a result is France is really not doing well, despite this new government being in action and offering a bit more freedom to the people. France itself is not doing so well. So in a true coup, Napoleon, he removes the government and along with his brother sets up a new consulship government. And then in 1804, Napoleon, by him alone, is appointed Pope, or appointed Pope. He is appointed Emperor of France by the Pope, and he very famously puts the crown on his own head, which in a coronation, you usually don't do that. But Napoleon, being his own very different man, does it. He puts the crown on his own head, and yeah. So also in this year, this is when he truly begins what he's known for conquering Europe. He takes over Spain and Portugal, and he actually appoints his own brother as the leader of Spain, and puts the royal family of Spain under house arrest. This isn't in the movie, but this is just something else that happens in this year. And as a result, this is also what leads to the revolutions in the Spanish colonies and at the time Brazil, Portuguese colony, all fighting for their own independence from Spain and Portugal. And yeah, that's why all these countries now exist and are not just Spanish colonies. As well as in order to gain money for his his conquests, Napoleon, he also sells to us and here in the U.S. The Louisiana Purchase, which is basically a whole bunch of land from west of the Mississippi. So for anyone that's living to the west of the Mississippi, it's because of Napoleon that it's U.S. territory, or now U.S. states. So yeah, that's pretty much, at least here in the U.S., what we just think of Napoleon as, just the guy that gave us the land west of the Mississippi River. Never really bothered us over here too much. That was also back when the U.S. didn't really get involved with conflicts everywhere. So anyway, a year later, Napoleon, he truly begins his conquest of Europe. In the Battle of Austerlitz against Austria and Russia, he famously beats them by attracting the Austrians and Russians onto the ice of a lake. He destroys all the ice by bombarding it with cannons, and he drowns many of them. And just wipes out half of the army of Austria. And in a meeting with the Austrian leader, he famously says that since Napoleon didn't destroy all of his army, he's expecting the Austrian government to be quite kind to him and grateful for him for not wiping out the other half of the army. So after this, Napoleon, he continues further to Russia, but in the middle of this, between this, Napoleon truly discovers that his wife Josephine, she is truly infertile. She is unable to have a child. He finds this out by sleeping with another woman, and she becomes pregnant. So, as a result, in 1810, Napoleon divorces Josephine. They still, despite this, they still remain close. She leaves to a mansion in France while Napoleon continues his conquest of Europe. He moves into Russia. In, I believe it's 1810 or just later, in 1810, he continues to go push through Russia. Despite being pushed back by some of the Russian natives, he pushed him and his armies. They continuously push all the way to Moscow, where they find it completely abandoned. There's no one around. The Russian leaders, they've abandoned it. They've taken all their citizens and left. And later, when Napoleon reaches it, the city, it's actually set on fire by the Russians themselves. And Napoleon wanting to go further, but unfortunately, him and his army, they've made the same mistake that everyone seems to make when anyone invades Russia. They got stuck by the Russian winter, so they were forced to push back, go back to France. But in the process, Napoleon ended up losing about 500,000 of his men. And when he arrives back in France, the coalitions of France and also just of all European nations of the time, they decide they don't want Napoleon around. They don't like him.
This vermin has held the world hostage with his egotism and his lack of simple good manners.
You know, they want France to be back ruled under under a monarchy, just as it was. They want to reinstate the monarchy with King Louis the 18th. So Napoleon, he is forcibly exiled to the island of Elba, which is off the coast of Italy, while his wife Josephine, Josephine, she's still there in France in her mansion. Although despite this, Napoleon, he still continuously writes to her. They also just continuously write to each other. And while Napoleon is off in exile, Josephine, she gets sick and dies. Upon hearing this, Napoleon, he boards a ship back to France, trying to go see Josephine, but before he arrives, she truly dies. And saddened by this, Napoleon, he recruits many people trying to retake power in France, and this occurs in 1815. And upon seeing this, King Louis XVIII, he sends the army against Napoleon, but Napoleon, he's able to goad the army into joining him against King Louis XVIII. And he takes over France, and he tries to take over all of Europe. So, upon hearing that Napoleon is back in control of France, you could say this is all the European monarchs' reaction.
Bring me everyone. What do you mean everyone?
Everyone!
Yeah, they want everyone, every single European nation, to go after Napoleon and truly get rid of him for good. Because Napoleon is kind of the living example of what is occurring in France and what they don't want to happen in their own nations. They don't want their people to rebel against them and for them to lose their power that they've had for centuries over their nations. So they all go to war against Napoleon at Waterloo, and this is where he famously loses. And he is re-exiled, and he is sent so far away that he never is able to return. He is sent to the island of St. Helena, which is a British-owned island in the South Atlantic. It's about halfway between Africa and South America. And this is where he remains, Napoleon, for the next 6 years until his death in in 1821. And it's here that he writes his memoirs, which actually become bestseller worldwide at the time. And he just basically tries to tell his stories to the kids that are there. And yeah, that's basically Napoleon, the movie. And at the end, it shows that in his entire life, Napoleon he was able to kill 3 million people. So yeah, that's the movie Napoleon. All in all, this movie, it was really good. The battle scenes were incredible. Like, they were so just... I mean, there were some CGI used, of course, but it's like, the battle scenes, they were really well done. You can tell Ridley Scott definitely, like, tried his best. I mean, this isn't his best movie, but it's still really good. Joaquin Phoenix, he did fairly well for Napoleon, and I do also think Vanessa Kirby, she did great as Josephine. You know, all the characters, they really try their best to truly fit into the time period now. Even though Joaquin Phoenix, he definitely acted great as Napoleon, but I mean, in terms of looks, he doesn't exactly look like Napoleon, but, you know, whatever. So all in all, I'd say, despite this movie probably not really being out in theaters anymore, I would give this movie probably a solid B+, you know? Go see it, check it out. It's a pretty good movie. And, yeah, it's a good way to learn something new about Napoleon, I guess. So, let's get into the next movie we'll be reviewing. It's an action movie starring Jason Statham. It's not a Marvel movie for once. So, here's the trailer.
No way he's coming here straight through the back entrance.
I figured I'd give the firefighters a break.
Somebody detain this guy. Ah!
We have to kill him before he kills his way to the top.
Honey?
It's flammable as fuck. Oh no.
So yeah, next movie is The Beekeeper. It looks like just a interesting action movie starring Jason Statham. See how it goes. If you all like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.
It's over.